Okay, welcome everyone. Let's start with a quick prayer as usual. Just asking our guardian angels, the benefactors, the good spirits who are taking part in this study, that we all together be blessed by our beloved Master, that we be inspired by the good spirits, so that our learning can go beyond the ordinary learning. Our minds may be more receptive for the information that we are about to receive, and that this information may guide us through life, showing more about ourselves, about the world, and may we all apply wherever we receive for the good of all of us. So be it.
Amen.
Welcome everyone again. So Guilherme won't be with us today, so I'll be coordinating the study. Let me share my screen. Yeah, okay. Can you all see the book?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So last week we started to study chapter 9, the item, the aptitude of certain mediums for things they do not know, languages, music, drawing, etc. So basically the study was about, how could mediums with a certain knowledge, a certain experience, be the instrument of spirits to communicate things they, in principle, don't know about. So there were some questions that were answered here. Mediums of very low intelligence, being the instruments of enlightened spirits. So we stop here at question 20. How can we explain the aptitude of certain mediums to write in verse in spite of their poetic ignorance? And the answer is, poetry is a language in itself. They can write in verse, just as they could write in an unknown language. Furthermore, they could have been poets in a previous existence. As I have already stated, acquired knowledge is never lost by spirits, who must reach perfection in all areas. Thus, without their realizing it, what they knew in the past provides them an ease that they do not possess in the normal state. I think it's important to remember, for us to understand, we know that, it's not the first time we are in a physical body. We know that we have a baggage, experiences, knowledges that we bring from our past existences. Some of us even from different planets. I wouldn't say that, a lot of us, but, we know that it is possible for spirits to come from a more advanced planet and incarnate here. But let's consider that we have a baggage. And when we take up a physical body, while our brain is developing, of course, this baggage is not fully expressing itself, but it has some influence in how our brain develops. In the same way that the external environment, what we learn from our surroundings, what we learn from reading, going to school, a new language, wherever we are, we will certainly know a language, maybe the same we used to speak in the previous incarnation, perhaps a new language, completely different for us. So all this will help us develop a brain, which is the machine that's going to be a machine basically for translation. Any thought that we have, we will express through our brain to the physical world in terms of words, in terms of, spoken words, written words, but we need words to express ourselves. And any fact that comes from the outside to the inside of us as knowledge and experience, also when we understand or try to understand that, try to grasp the meaning of that and accommodate that in us, that also we have to take into consideration the experience that we bring in our spirit to interpret certain facts, as something that is good or that is not so good. For instance, if you have a trauma that we bring from a previous incarnation, when we are faced with a similar situation to that caused the trauma to us, we will have a certain reaction. Where is this reaction coming from? From our brain? Well, our brain has not experienced that in this incarnation. It comes from our spirit. We don't know exactly why, but we have a certain, it's usually a phobia, oh, I get really in panic when I'm faced with this situation. If we don't have experienced this situation before in this incarnation, where is it coming from? So all this is, expresses, molds our brain through the connections that we make. Whenever we learn something new, our nerve cells in our brain, they make new connections to basically establish, bring that knowledge and set the knowledge in our physical machine. When the spirits, they manifest themselves, of course, they have this machine at their disposal. And this machine also has to do with the experience that the spirit brings. For instance, I never spoke Chinese never learned Chinese in this incarnation, but perhaps my last incarnation was in China, and I'm not aware of that. But that, of course, created in my brain certain predispositions to manifest something in Chinese, or even speak or write in Chinese. But I'm not aware of that. I'm not using that. But spirits know. And when they manifest in Chinese, for instance, they'll find a better machine, my brain, because of my previous experience. So we have a translation machine that we don't use to express Chinese words or thoughts or whatever, but we have the potential to, because we knew Chinese in our previous incarnation. Our spirit has that information there, although it's not explicitly exposed. We are not aware of that, but somehow that expresses itself in the formation of our brain, which allows our physical machine to be a good instrument for the spirits, for instance, to give a communication in Chinese. So it's basically what we acquired in this incarnation added to what we bring from the previous one, that will somehow mold our physical machine, and the spirits will use this physical machine to manifest themselves. That's that explains why someone who is perhaps of low intelligence, as the spirits say here, because it's he hasn't learned a lot in this incarnation. It had a very humble, simple life, but can speak an unknown language to the majority of us. How come? How is it possible? So basically, the spirits will go on giving explanation for that. But the idea is that we bring experience from our previous lives, who, of course, molds our brain for us to be who we are, plus all the experience from this life. It comes, I would say, from the outside to the inside, and not from the inside to the outside. It creates a machine that will allow not only our original thoughts to express themselves, but also the spirits to manifest themselves through this machine. Of course, if the machine is damaged by a disease, a car accident, and if I bang my head and damage my brain, of course the machine is damaged. I won't be able to express myself as I used to, before the accident or before the disease. It's something that may happen, and we know. But in normal conditions, I have a machine that is suitable for me to express myself. Not fully, because we know that the spirit, most of the baggage that the spirit brings is there quiet, is in a locker, is somehow stored there, but is not manifesting clearly. I lived in France in my previous incarnation. Where is my French now? I can't just open my mouth and start talking in French as a native speaker. But the information is there. If I start to learn, then I will have perhaps the ability to learn quicker than some other people who never spoke French, not even in previous incarnation. incarnation. So what I'm saying is that our baggage will help in the development of our physical brain in the same way that our external experiences will add also to this development of our brain. That's why they say that acquired knowledge is never lost by spirits. And the spirits will use that. Okay? Let's move to question 21. Does the same apply to those who display special aptitude for drawing or music? Yes. Drawing and music are also forms of expressing thought, and spirits use instruments that offer them the most ease. Again, for the spirits to manifest themselves through drawing, through music or poetry, whatever, or even bringing some very advanced ideas, they prefer to use, it's easier for them to use an instrument that has, the elements they need, that is prepared for that, because their thought has to go through our brain or the medium's brain and then express themselves. And the spirits say, the physical manifestation of the language, be it spoken, written, is something that is, it belongs to the material world, because for the spirits, it's just thoughts. Oh, the spirits, they talk, what language do they use? Between them or among them? Well, they don't use language, they understand thought. They send out thought, and each one, understands that without using language. We need language. We need, different types of languages. And they say here that drawing and music are also forms of expressing thoughts. It is a language per se. 22. Does the expression of thoughts through poetry, drawing, or music depend solely on the aptitude of the medium, or also on that of the communicating spirit? Sometimes the medium, sometimes the spirit. Highly evolved spirits possess all aptitudes, whereas less evolved ones have limited knowledge. So basically, what they are saying is that evolved spirits, they possess the knowledge, the aptitude, and whereas in a communication, the medium may be very good, maybe for instance a musician, and the spirit who knows something about music may use this knowledge of the medium, or the other way around. The medium may be sort of illiterate in music, but the spirit may be someone with high aptitudes in music. So that's why they say sometimes the medium, sometimes the spirit.
Just one question.
Oh, yes, Denise.
Yeah, it will be, because the high evolved spirits have lived much longer, so that is the only reason that we would have more of these aptitudes, just because he has passed the incarnations where he has learned everything.
Yes, aptitudes are acquired, and they are acquired through incarnation. Of course, in the spirit world, when you get to a level where you don't need to, come to take up a physical body, because physical life is necessary during a certain period in our, immortality. And after that, we carry on learning, through different experiences. But yeah, because they are, as they say, more evolved spirits, they already possess that, because they, went through all sorts of experiences, developing, all aptitudes.
And you have to learn these aptitudes in life, like let's say drawing. Yes, you have to come through one experience in life that we're going to learn to draw. Can you learn these things like in the spiritual world?
We can learn there, and we can learn here. Okay. Both. It's a constant process. We know, for instance, they say that, the great paintings that we have here by these great artists, they say that a lot of them, or if not all of them, were inspired or inspiration from similar, more perfect pieces of art from the spiritual world. Architecture as well, they say every now and then that, oh, this is a simplified, style, that already exists in the spirit world. So we are constantly learning. wherever we are. And if we think that when we get to a point where we don't need to take up a physical body as such, at least the one, in the form that we all know. So if we don't carry on progressing, learning, because we are not taking up a physical body, so we won't get, pure spirits, because from a certain point onwards, we don't take up a physical body as we know it. We don't need that. It's a different level of experience, because the experience we need now is very close to dense matter. I would say, is the kindergarten of our immortality. But as we evolve, we go to different setups and different environments where that experience will add more to us than the simple kind of experiences or very, very how would I put, very initial type of a learning that we get from here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Oh, hello, Liz. Yeah.
Okay. I'm very curious as to know if we've been told of the mechanisms that they use in fifth density when we know we don't have a physical body per se, how they can manifest the drawings and the music and those kind of creative acts. Do we know how that is created or beyond the veil?
You mean on the other side?
Yeah.
How they are created?
Yeah.
I didn't get actually the question itself.
All right.
What's the doubts?
How, when you're in spirit form,
Yeah.
do they create like music, artwork, those kind of creations? Like, we have limbs and fingers and things like that to paint and stuff. How would they create over there?
Well, first we know that the language in the spirit world is thoughts. Although in closer, in environments closer to the physical world, they need to use the hands. They need to use, because it's a way of manifesting the perispirit. And as the spirit evolves, of course, is through thoughts. We know, for instance, of certain cases where the spirits, their willpower is already developed in a way that they mentally manipulate the fluids and create things using the manipulation through thoughts of those fluids. But it very much depends on which level we are. We know, for instance, people in the spirit world, they need food. Some spirits don't need food at all. Some spirits need to rest, to sleep. Some other spirits don't sleep at all, constantly working. It very much depends on our needs. So we'll get, or we manifest ourselves depending, of the level of evolution that we have managed to achieve. So I wouldn't say to you, oh, it is like this, it is like that. Perhaps in lower, areas or colonies, closer to the physical world, they perhaps will have, the same or similar things that we have here to paint, to, play music or whatever. Whereas in more evolved world, we know that, for instance, music just comes in the air and, as a manifestation of a thought or something. So it is created in a more etherealized way than we are used to. But it very much depends on, our capacity to use all these faculties, how much developed they are when we get back to the spirit world.
Yeah, because we ourselves, as we evolve, also become creators. We also can create, populations, animals and everything. We take part in populating the planet, etc. And our brains are quite capable of that. And as we know from, communications and books like Not So Large, those kind of places and cities that are closer to the density of the planet, they kind of copy the kind of houses and buildings and cities that they're used to down here, and they do replicas up there, so they feel at home, so to speak.
Yeah, they say it's the other way around, Liz. They are always ahead. What they have here, soon we'll start to have here. They say that, for instance, certain types of architecture, they appeared there before they appeared here, and some spirits inspired in that. They basically brought similar ideas to the development. For instance, the fact that, you know, we live in cities now, and you know, they say basically what we have here is an inspiration of what we have there, and not the other way around. I mean, we don't take from here to there, we bring from there to here.
I know where good innovations and things like that are concerned. Yes, of course, they spring first from the higher worlds, especially, you know, anything that is intelligent design. I find it very difficult, though, to understand that cities are a higher manifestation per se.
No, they are not a higher manifestation, but they are.
But
Yeah, they are the necessary environment for the level that we are.
right.
We have the environment around us. They say there's no heaven, there's no hell. The environment around us is the environment that we create. So our needs, we create certain environments for us. There are colonies that are more advanced than other colonies. Why is that? Because the spirits who can inhabit those colonies, they are already in a development level that, you know, allows them to create a different environment, more spiritualized environment than some other spirits. So basically, these creations are creations according to our needs. And as we evolve, our needs are different. So the creation around us are different as well, are more evolved. You know, as I said to you, perhaps in a colony, everyone eats because the spirits are still too attached to the physical world that they need food. So you have, let's say, a restaurant, and you go to a more advanced colony in spiritual terms, you won't find a single restaurant. If you talk about food, no, there's no need for food here. You know, so the environment is always in accordance to the level of those spirits inhabiting the area, the place as such. And it's the same about, you know, the two extremes, the lower levels and the higher levels as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the latest communications most probably elaborated on that, but they most probably haven't been translated into English yet for people to, you know, get up to speed.
Yeah. But it's good that you brought up this for the discussion, because you know, sometimes we share what we know, what we, you know, have read, and this is good. Okay, so number 23. Why do individuals who were gifted with a great talent in one existence not possess it in the next one? That is not always the case, for often such individuals perfect in one existence what they had begun in the previous one. Nonetheless, it could be that a superior faculty lies dormant for a certain amount of time in order to facilitate the development of another. I've highlighted this because although we say that everything is in us, all the faculties and all the aptitudes we have developed, they lie dormant on us. So why aren't we constantly manifesting them, you know, and improving them all the time? And I think this is the answer, because sometimes we are so developed, so advanced in a certain aptitude, in a certain faculty, that prevents us from developing other faculties that we have to develop. You know, we just discussed that, just answered Denise, you know, saying that, you know, yes, for us to get, you know, become more evolved spirits, we need to develop, you know, as many faculties as necessary. and through experience, of course. And we have to develop all the faculties, all the potential that we bring in us that are there dormant, waiting for us to work on them and to develop them. But sometimes we develop one, and because we are so, attached to that one, we forget or we don't want to develop others. And that's why the spirits say here that to facilitate the development of another or some other faculties, it's sometimes necessary to block the main one in one, or perhaps 2, 3, don't know how many incarnations, so that we can develop all the aptitudes we are supposed to. It will be a latent seed that will later germinate again, but there will always be some visible signs of it, or at least a vague intuition. It is there, but it's dormant. There is a veil around it. So we're not supposed to, carry on developing, using that faculty for a while, because we need to concentrate on other faculties. So it's like, we have to take exams in different subjects, but we like very much one of them, and you only study one of them. It's just one of them. So we neglect the others, and we are supposed to, get good marks in all of them, not just one. Hi, Liz.
Hi, I hope you can hear me because my internet is
Yeah.
very erratic at the moment. Yes, about learning all the different faculties, I think we can relate that a bit to the school system, where you choose arts or science, because it would be impossible for the brain and to be able to take the exams at the end of it to study all of those. You have to choose whichever your spirit feels most amenable to. And then maybe in another life you go on, you take the arts one life and then study on to the science the next. Once you get okay with that, then you can go more complicated and do quantum physics and the mathematics of the universe. An analogy I'd like to give about that latent talent was, I was told a while ago, I think it was from my son, that I used to be a dressmaker and had a shop in the high street in Wandsworth in London, in my last incarnation, the 1920s or whatever. It was amazing because when I was at school in the boarding house, I automatically knew how to make skirts and do make hats and things like that with no patterns or anything like that, and was just kind of making stuff for myself because I just had this, I was drawn to being creative with material and colors. Where that came from, I can only say that's where it was, because that was my previous profession in my last incarnation.
Yeah, we sometimes realize that in life, for instance, I like music so much. I love classical music. I have a passion for classical music. And since early age, I had this ease regarding music, but I was always doing something else. There was always, whenever I tried to learn how to play an instrument, or whenever I decided, say, perhaps I should go, into music or wherever, something basically, draw your attention to something else, prevented you from actually giving too much time to that. But you still love music. Whenever you go, you have the opportunity to go to a concert. You basically, if you sit at the piano, instinctively you can play a few notes, and easily, as they say, we have this dormant faculty there, but you don't go along that line. You keep that in parallel to your normal life. you don't develop that, or don't take too much time and dedicate to that, because you need to do it, dedicate that to something else. But it's there, it's like, whenever you can, you listen to some classical music or whatever. And sometimes we even say, oh, perhaps in my previous incarnation I was a musician or composer or whatever. But it is there, it's something that you take with you. You love that, you realize that it is something that is part of you, but you don't spend time developing that. And it's to me, it's a clear sign that yes, you have worked on that, and now you have to work on something else, but you love it. Well, you love it. There's no way to take that away from you. It's something that you bring from one or perhaps even many incarnations in a row. Who knows?
We have that example in our family with 3 people. My mother got to a classic concert pianist, and my niece, she was told she's been friends with Johann Strauss for a long time now. He has inspired her compositions, and she's like a prodigy in music and composing music. And my daughter was still my daughter in my previous life, and she was a singer in the last life, and that's what she's gone on to do this life, into compositions, and is really fully in music. And there was nothing else that she would ever want to do.
Yeah, there's a natural talent. The person, they say, oh, they bring that with them, And
Yeah.
yes, it's the result of some work, perhaps even hard work, done in the past. And today you have to take a different track. You keep that with you, we won't lose it, but your time now will be dedicated to developing or progressing along a different track. Okay, what's the time? No, I still have plenty of time. 224. So basically, yeah, these ones we were answering until now. We had 23 smaller questions, and they were all, related to these aptitudes of certain mediums for, certain specific areas. Now we have 224. Undoubtedly, a communicating spirit understands all languages because they are forms for expressing thought, and the spirit understands through thoughts. In order to transmit these thoughts, however, it requires an instrument, the medium. The medium soul, who receives the spirit's communication, can only transmit it through the bodily organs. Thus, for transmitting in an unknown language, these organs do not have the flexibility they possess for the familiar language. And this is more or less what we discussed at the beginning, that the brain, the physical part of our thought process, or manifesting our thought process, is prepared for certain language and not from some other languages. A medium who only knows how to speak in French could accidentally give a response in English, for example, if the spirit so wills. However, spirits who find human language already too slow in comparison to the speed of thought, and therefore they try to abbreviate their language as much as possible, become impatient with the mechanical resistance of the transmission. And that is why they do not always attempt it. So they're saying basically, if the spirit wants to use someone who doesn't speak English to give an answer in English, they will, but they say it's very hard. They'll give, more details further down. It's really interesting, the process, the comparisons they make when they have a very good machine to express what they want, and when they have, a machine that is not prepared for the task, the difficulties that they have to overcome. This is also the reason why novice mediums who write painfully and slowly, even in their own language, usually only receive brief responses that are not fully developed. This is also why spirits recommend that only simple questions be asked by such novices. For further reaching questions, a developed medium is required, who offers no mechanical resistance to the spirit. We would not choose a student who was just learning to spell, to read a text for us. Just learning to spell, to read the text for us. A good worker does not like to use low-quality instruments. Let us add another highly important consideration regarding foreign languages. Endeavors in this area are always done out of curiosity with the purpose of experimentation, and nothing is more unpleasant to spirits than the proofs to which some individuals try to submit them. I've highlighted this because it is true. Some people, they think that the spirits are at their disposal, and they want to submit the spirits to all sorts of proofs. And more evolved spirits won't waste their time in this type of, activity. They will basically, leave the work, and the spirits who will, join the work won't be that elevated. So for them, the purpose of the meeting, the intention of the medium and indoctrinator, if there is an indoctrinator there as well, or people taking part in the meeting, is very important for the type of spirit who's going to manifest. And they say sometimes it's a hard, very difficult task to give the idea in its essence through a machine that it's faulty, the brain of the medium, who can't fully grasp the meaning. So they have to give just short answers, limiting the scope of their answer, because the instrument can't write more complex ideas, and they won't submit themselves to this type of activity just to prove, test the spirit, prove their existence or whatever. Highly evolved spirits never lend themselves to this, and they depart from those who intend to enter onto such a path. They love serious and useful subjects as much as they loathe concerning themselves with useless and purposeless ones. Disbelievers will say that it is nevertheless a useful aim for convincing them, in that it could result in winning adherents for the cause of the spirits. In response, the spirits state, our cause does not need those who are so proud as to deem themselves indispensable. We call to ourselves those whom we want, and who are always the humblest and most unassuming. So this is very important, is to remember that, we owe respect to the spirits, especially the enlightened ones. And if we want to work with them, we have to be humble. We have to, let them guide the type of meeting according to what is really important, what is really necessary, and not, to answer our sometimes even vain questions, wasting their time. Did Jesus perform wonders for the scribes when they asked him to? And what kinds of individuals did he use to revolutionize the world? If we want to convince yourselves, you have other means than through demands. Start by submitting yourselves to the facts. It is not normal for students to impose their will upon their master. I think this is very, very clear. And it's the other way around, the master on the students and not the students on the master. The result of this is that, except for a few exceptions, mediums transmit spirits' thoughts through the available mechanical means, and the expression of this thought could and should be often affected by the imperfection of such means. And here the meaning is the brain of the medium. Thus, uncultured individuals will say the most beautiful things and express the most elevated and philosophical thoughts in an uncultured manner. For, as we know, for spirits, the thought means more than everything else. So we see the influence of the medium here. Sometimes, very elevated and philosophical thoughts, they are transmitted in an uncultured manner, because this is the characteristic of the medium. That's why it's very difficult to say or to have a message that has no interference from the medium. I would say it's almost impossible, because as instruments, the medium will dress the idea which comes from the spirit with his capacity of using words, of expressing him or herself. So that's why sometimes the form is not as important as the essence of the message. This answers the objections of certain critics as to incorrectness of style and spelling, which they would blame the spirits for, but which could be attributed to either the mediums themselves or the spirits. Yes, if it is an uncultured spirit, we wouldn't expect a message that's highly elaborate in terms of ideas and languages. This is also true. It may be a very well-prepared medium, but according to the spirit, of course, the deficiencies of the spirit will be clear in the message. It is not worthwhile to dwell on such matters, as it is no less childish to want to point out such incorrectness with minute precision, as we have sometimes witnessed. We should correct it without any scruples, unless it is characteristic of the communicating spirits, in which case it will be useful to retain as proof of identity. Hence, for example, we have seen a spirit always write Jewel, lacking the S, when referring to its grandson, because during its lifetime it wrote it like that, although the grandson, who served as its medium, knew perfectly well how to spell his own name. I think this is a clear example. It's just a form of identity. So the missing S is on purpose, actually, as a sign of identity. But what they are saying is there's no problem in, if there is a spelling mistake in the message, to go and revise the message and correct them. Of course, we should be careful not to change the essence of the message, but the form, there's no problem. And sometimes some written message, they are received in, in such a way that, it's very easily the paper can move, or the pencil, and the words are not very clear. So yes, the idea is that the medium, as soon as possible, revises the message actually to perhaps, complete the words that has some missing bits, or to revise, the spelling or any other mistake. But in some cases, they say, it's a form of identity. For instance, my middle name is Antonio. My mother usually, she used to call Antoine in French. And if she comes and gives a message and someone, the medium writes my name and, spells it the French way, it's a form of identity. I know it is her, although they would say, no, perhaps he made a mistake here. No, it's, wrong spelling. That is on purpose to be sort of a identity, knowing that, yes, it comes from her and not from someone else. Okay, can we move forward? So here we have a very nice text by Erastus and Timothy, about a spirit's dissertation on the role of mediums. 225. The following dissertation, given spontaneously by a high-order spirit who revealed itself through highly sublime communications, clearly and completely summarizes the issue of the medium's role. And this is the answer or the dissertation of this spirit. Whatever may be the nature of writing mediums, whether mechanical, semi-mechanical, or simply intuitive, our procedures for communicating through them do not vary essentially. So he's talking from the part of the spirit. Actually, our communications with incarnate spirits, as well as spirits per se, occur solely by the radiation of our thoughts. So I've highlighted this because spirit to spirit, or spirit to an incarnate spirit, is through thoughts. It all starts through thought exchange. Our thoughts do not have to be clothed in words in order for spirits to understand them. All spirits perceive the thought that we want to transmit to them by the simple fact that we direct it to them, and this according to the degree of their intellectual faculties. As I said before, thoughts we will perceive according to our intellectual development as spirits, the intellectual development of our spirit. This means that a specific thought can be comprehended by some according to their respective advancement, whereas for others the same thought will not be perceptible, as it awakens no memory or understanding in the depths of their hearts or minds. If that experience, if that faculty, if that ability of the spirits is not there yet, they won't understand. They will miss that bit. They will simplify the idea that has been transmitted to them according to their capacity. So this is valid for spirits talking to spirits and spirits talking to us, incarnate spirits. In such a case, the incarnate spirit who acts as our medium is more appropriate for transmitting our thoughts to other incarnates, even though it does not understand the thought. Sometimes a discarnate but less evolved spirit could not do if we depended on its mediation. I'll read it again because it sounds a bit confusing here. In such a case, it's talking about the fact that, some thoughts are not perceptible by some spirits who haven't evolved enough to understand that. So in such a case, the incarnate spirit, so he's talking about the incarnate spirit who is receiving this thought, who acts as our medium, is more appropriate for transmitting our thoughts to other incarnates, even though it does not understand the thought. Sometimes a discarnate but less evolved spirit could not do if we depend on its mediation. So what he's saying is that when he's transmitting thoughts, ideas, communicating them through incarnate spirits, through a medium, the medium may not understand, but the idea can be passed on. Because the medium is an instrument, and it can be manipulated as such by the spirit to give the best of the idea as possible. Perhaps the medium won't understand, but other spirits, other incarnates who are, for instance, in the group or who read the message may grasp better the idea than the medium, him or herself. Because the medium is just an instrument. In this case, passive instrument. If the spirits were to communicate to another spirit who is of a lower level of understanding, the spirit wouldn't understand. So full stop. The message wouldn't go further because that spirit couldn't understand the meaning. You see the difference? Because when this one spirit is talking to another spirit, it's a direct talk. If the other spirit doesn't understand, doesn't know what to say to others. But when a medium is used, although the spirit of the medium or the medium may not understand what the spirit is saying, other people may benefit from that message because they will understand. So it's almost like the medium is a loudspeaker. The loudspeaker won't understand what it is saying, but other people who are hearing it will. Whereas talking directly to another spirit, these other spirits, being of a low intellectual capacity, that spirit will not understand what this other spirit is saying. Because the thought of one cannot be understood by the thought of others. Whereas the medium is just an instrument. It just conveys the message, And he said, well, I don't know if it makes sense to any of you here, but, I said all these words, and to me, it does make sense. Someone may say, no, it does. It does. To me, it does, because it's talking about this and that. And so that's why they say, perhaps it's more profitable for the spirit to communicate through a medium, and reach more people than just, talking directly to another spirit. And the medium may convey the message and still not understand, it is possible. Yeah. This is because the earthbound being gives its body as an instrument at our disposal, which the discarnate spirit cannot do. The discarnate spirit just receives the thought, will understand, will not understand, full stop. The medium is an instrument, it's the loudspeaker. So the loudspeaker will basically disseminate the information, despite the fact that perhaps, no, of course, it's not always the case, but perhaps the medium, him or herself, may not understand or appreciate the full content of what he or she is conveying. I still have some time. Thus, whenever we find mediums whose minds are full of knowledge acquired during their present lifetime, and whose spirits are rich in previously acquired, latent knowledge proper for facilitating our communications, we will prefer to employ them. For then, the phenomenon of the communication will be much easier for us than through mediums of limited intelligence and whose previously acquired knowledge is insufficient. We will try to make ourselves better understood through some clear and precise explanation. Look, here, Erastus is talking about acquired during this present lifetime and rich and previously acquired. That's why I say all the acquired information in this incarnation will somehow affect our brain to accommodate the ideas for us to understand, to manifest, and also what we bring from our previously acquired knowledge that we bring is in our spirits. And also this knowledge, despite the fact that perhaps it may not be noticeable by us, it affects who we are and how our brain is formed. Because the brain is very flexible. Every time we learn something new, if we learn a language, if we learn something, and the brain is changing to accommodate those ideas and to be an instrument for the thought, although the spirit is the one who stores the information. But the brain has to be a go-between, it has to be able to receive and to interpret, to pass that back, because we speak, we write, we have a manifestation of our understanding, which is in the spirit. But that's why he says that both are very important, what we acquire here and what we bring from previous incarnations. So that's why the obligation of mediums and even non-mediums, but spiritists as such, is to study, to read, to acquire information. Some people say, well, I don't know, well, I don't want to know about this or about that. I'm not going to use this in my life. Well, but this is information that will, help your own development. And perhaps in the future, an idea or some knowledge that you need to acquire will be more easily acquired because you have prepared yourselves. And, you see that even in this case, it is important. And just to finish here, something that always puzzled me and becomes more clear now is the medium in Brazil, the Divaldo Franco. He knows about all sorts of things. He reads about everything. And not just spiritist literature, but he reads about everything. And now I understand better why. Because for him, it's easier to understand certain ideas that he receives from the spirits because he has heard of them. He has some, understanding of what they are talking about, instead of talking about something completely unknown to him. He reads about psychology, for instance. Not that he is a psychologist, but he reads about psychology because his guide, Joanna de Angelis, she's got many books with psychological aspects. She's got a series of books in psychology. He is not psychology himself, but to better serve as instrument, he prepared himself, reading a lot about psychologists, psychology search, and, so that's why we should improve ourselves, not wasting time, to read, to acquire information, to be aware of everything, all the situations, and, in the world, because that can be used when we serve as instruments for the spirits. Okay. So people, you are very quiet today. Apart from this and question of my where is
I think we cannot have any question because you just explained everything so clearly.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. But if you people want to carry on reading, we'll pick up from this point next week. But if you carry on reading, Erastus gives some very nice examples comparing us to instruments, from finely tuned violin to a whistle, 10-cent whistle, as he says there. And we want to play the same area through this whistle or this violin, which one would you choose? Okay. Right, time is up then. I'll say just a quick prayer of, thanks to the spirits. So let's, at this moment, raise our thoughts of gratitude all together in unison to our Master Jesus, who's coordinating all this work, the studies, the practices, and our everyday life, which is part of our lessons. We thank him. We thank so much from the bottom of our heart for all the opportunities, for the incarnation, and for receiving all these teachings while here, while we can do a lot and take advantage of this present incarnation. and those in the spirit who invited us for this gathering, for this huge study group. It goes beyond the physical realm into the spiritual one, and asking for their protection and guidance throughout the whole week. We then ask their permission to close our meeting. So be it.
Amen.
Amen. Thank
My
you for
dear
today.
people, thank you very much
later.
indeed. Let me stop here
Thank
the
you.
sharing.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. See you all next week.
See
God
you.
bless.
you.
Bye, bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thanks to everyone.
Bye bye. See you.